Hello, my name is Eli McMakin for cgtuts.com. Today we're going to go over the subject of caustics in C4D. What are caustics? Well, caustics, as you can see in this example, are something that happens in nature when light is refracted and reflected through different lenses and things like that. The caustics in this image create this kind of Voronoi map on the bottom of the pool here in the form of lights, and in this case kind of a singularity through this garden marble type thing. And today we're going to go and create caustics in C4D, and you can use it to create pools and all kinds of other things that you want to create in C4D. So let's get started. Alright, so we have C4D open. The first thing you need to do is go ahead and create a cube. I'm going to go ahead and move this cube up, and I'm going to drop it to the floor using the drop to floor plugin that we covered in my last tutorial. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to make it an editable object by clicking these little world icon or pressing C. Then you're going to go to your polygon tool, make sure that's selected. You're going to click the front face of your object so that only the front face is selected. See, it's yellow, so I know it's selected. And then I'm going to press delete. Alright, so now we have an inside to the box. I'm using my middle mouse wheel to scroll closer, and alt middle mouse wheel to move around the scene. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my model tool, and I'm going to make sure that this cube is, let's make it a little bit bigger. So we're going to change the size to 400 by 400 by 400. Press enter to apply it. Let's go ahead and drop this to the floor again. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a plane in there. This is going to be the top of our water. And I'm going to make the Y value, let's go 150. Okay, so it doesn't look like much yet, but bear with me. Now, if I press Control R, it's going to render it, and we have a default light, but that's not very good. We want to put our own light in there. Now for caustics, oftentimes people will use a spotlight, but right now we're going to use an Omni light. And we're going to want to move this to the top of the box here, close to the ceiling. And that'll be good for now. And now we're going to start putting, well, one more thing we're going to do is I'm going to put a floor in here. And this is going to, what a floor is basically a plane that extends to the, well, for infinity. So I'm going to put that in there. And now we're going to start putting out our materials. And I have my materials here already, but we're going to go over them so you can create them. In order to create a material, you go to File, New Material, and we're just going to copy what I've done so far. So I'm going to double click on my floor, and for the floor I just basically left the color as it is, and I put in a little bit of reflection because everything is naturally a little bit reflective in real life, otherwise it would just be completely black. So I put a reflection of about 6% in here, and basically a turn on specular, or left it on. And we're going to apply this to the floor, so we'll go ahead and drag it out there. And we're also going to apply this to the box, so drag that onto the box. And you'll see that it's applied because these little balls are the material, and they're applied to their corresponding objects. Now we're going to go ahead and apply the water. So go ahead and create a new material, and this one was a little bit tricky, but the settings that I liked are red 224, green 246, blue 255, and go ahead and copy that. Go to transparency, paste it, and so you're going to get that color for transparency. Refraction. All materials that you can see through have a refraction value, and this is basically how affects how light is going to bend in the material. For water, the refraction value is 1.33. So go ahead and apply that. This is very important. Now we're going to go to the reflection channel, and you want to make sure that your Fresnel effect is turned on. So for texture, go down to Fresnel. It's not Fresnel. I'm not going to really get into this effect in detail right now. Just make sure you have this thing turned on, and you're going to double click it, and you're going to make sure the gradient on this side is completely white, and on this side I moved it to about 22%. Now for the mixed mode, I made it multiply. We're going to go to the bump channel, and the bump channel is basically going to add some noise that makes the water look more like it's natural. So for texture, you're going to go to noise, make sure that's turned on, double click this. You're going to make sure that wavy turbulence is selected. If you want to make an animation, you're going to want to turn an animation speed on, and this animation speed will basically, as the movie's playing, it will make these noisy granulates kind of move over the surface. So it looks like things are moving around in your water. For high clip, I moved it down to about 80%, and specular is important. This is going to make the little highlights on the tips of your little waves. So I made the width 20% and the height 200%, and leave the fall off and inner width at 0%. Now if we want to make the water actually look wavy and not just flat with noise on it, we're going to have to turn on the displacement channel. So make sure that this is turned on. I turn the texture to noise, double click this, make sure it's wavy turbulence, that's selected. I turn on animation speed if you want to animate this, and put the high clip at about 80% again. Now you want to make sure your height is not too extreme unless you plan on making tidal waves and stuff. So I put my height at about 3 units. So I'm going to close this, and I'll apply the water to the plane right here. Now the garden marble. So to put the garden marble in there, I'm going to select the sphere, and I'm going to shrink this down to 100 by 100 by 100. Press enter. Make the Y value 150, and let's move it so it's more random, and press C to make it editable. So I made this material for the garden marble, and all that is the color. I left it alone. Transparency is really where the effect comes into play. So for transparency, just choose any color you want. I chose pink. A refraction index here is 1.52, and that's just the refraction of glass. Specular, you can play around with this. You can copy mine if you want. I found this to be nice. So we're going to drag that and put it onto the ball. And now I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to put a camera into this scene. And I'm going to go to Cinema 4D tags, and I'm going to put protection on the camera. That way, no matter what I do, this camera is not going to move. It's not going to change angles. It's just going to stay focused on this scene right here where I want it. Now, I can still move around the scene, but my camera is, you can see it's looking right here. And if I want to look through the camera, then I press this little button right here, this black thing. And now I'm back where the camera is. If I click off, now I'm back to zooming around and do whatever I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here again. And now to make sure that caustics are working, the first thing you need to do is go to your light. And in general, everything looks good to me here. So I'm going to go to Caustics. I'm going to turn on my surface Caustics. Now, energy is what determines kind of like the brightness of your Caustics. This is kind of like a gain control right here. If you turn energy up to 1000%, you're going to have blown out highlights, things like that. Photons are kind of going to affect the clarity of your Caustics. So right now it's at 10,000. I'm going to adjust this up to, let's go with 150,000. So now we're going to render the scene. And what you're going to notice is that nothing has happened. Well, I did that on purpose. And you need to know that just because you turn caustics on the light, you are not finished yet. So we have this scene where it looks pretty bizarre. We've just got this plane of water and no caustics. So I'm going to exit out of here. And what we need to do is we need to go to our settings. So we're going to click this button right here. We're going to press Control B, and we're going to go to Effect, and then we're going to click on the Caustics button right here. And you got to make sure this sucker's turned on. So now that's turned on. And additionally, we need to check out our illumination channel in our water, because that's the thing that we want caustics on the most. So we want to make sure that these buttons are turned on. And for our garden marble, we want to make sure that these buttons are turned on here, and they are. So we're good to go. And now we're going to go ahead and render this, and it's going to take a while. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the movie, and we're going to come back to it. Alright, and we're back. Well, the scene's finished. It took 2 hours, but I had some processes running in the background, and it also took about half a gigabyte of memory. Just so you know, I have a quad-core computer. It's pretty fast, and I have 4 gigabytes of RAM. So Caustics is pretty heavy on the calculations. Now let's deconstruct this scene and see what we got going on. We have a very blown out scene here, and that's okay. I wanted to blow it out a little bit just to show you how caustics work. Obviously you probably won't want this in your own scenes here. So what happened is we have 150,000 photons, and the way this works is a photon is just a little spot. It's just a little spot, and these spots, they refract and they reflect, and they form little pools of light in certain places. so that they form these little Voronoi map type thing in the bottom of the scene here. And the specular highlight right here too. Now, we entered 150,000 photons, but in this scene there's a lot more than 150,000. And what happens is when the light comes down from the top, here's our light right here, it hits the water or the reflective surface, and it makes a decision on whether or not to create a second photon. So once it hits the surface of this translucent surface, it decides to make a second photon, it will make a photon branch. So it calculates this photon tree, and in the end it ends up having, I don't know how many photons this scene had, but it had a lot, and it took a long time to render. Now, you may be saying to yourself, okay, what if we change some of the variables in the equation? What would happen then? And in order to save you some rendering time, I did just that. And let's go ahead and compare some of these things. And so, for example, right here, I have another scene where I had bluer water, and the light is high near the top of the box, and this scene took about 20 minutes to render because I just didn't have as many photons. And I toned down the power, the brightness of the photons. On this one, this is the same scene as the last one I just showed you, except I put the light here next to this garden marble. It was really close to it. And what happened is this actually quadrupled the time it took to render. I think a lot of it was just how it had to calculate this light on the wall, and also the Fresnel effect behaved differently. So I'll just show you here's the light high, here's the light low, high, low. So you can see how the Fresnel effect behaves differently. Okay. On this one, I had a little bit less light blue, and this is my control scene right here. Here I changed the bump map and displacement properties, and what I did was I changed on this materials, I went to the materials here, and I changed the displacement to 200%, and I changed for the global scale, and I changed my bump map, I changed it to 200% for the global scale. And as a result, we got really subtle Voronoi map going on here. It's bigger, it's more spread out. This next scene, I changed the displacement map and the bump map even more, so you can barely even see the highlights except for this garden marble singularity part right here. But you can see how it really changes and the way the water is too. It's a lot smoother. It looks more like a pond instead of like a wind is blowing over the top of it. Whereas in this one, it just looks really choppy. You wouldn't want to go skiing on this type of water. You'd rather go skiing on this type of water. It's much more smooth. Let's go ahead and close out of that. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the other variables here. Now, if you want to change the effect of just one material and how it works with caustics, what you do is you change the strength right here. So if we change the strength right here, or better yet, if we wanted the spot from the garden marble to really stand out more, we would change the strength right here. and you would jack it up a whole bunch. If you were doing like a diamond or something like that, you may want to change the strength up to like 400% in this illumination channel right here. If you want to adjust the strength over the whole scene, you can do it here. Or you can do it in your lights too, as you already know. For the sake of completeness, we're going to go ahead and go over volume caustics, and I've deleted everything except for a floor, the light, the camera, and the sphere that I put here. And what I did was I changed this material a little bit. I went to the bump channel and I added noise, wavy turbulence, 0 octaves, everything else the same. And I applied that to my circle here. Okay, so the secret to volume caustics is you go to this light here, and I change this to a spotlight because it's going to make your render times faster. And you have to go to this visible light checkbox and turn on volumetric. That's important. Now you go to caustics, and here's my new settings, because this tends to be pretty intense on your computer. I'm not going to lie. So energy 40% for surface caustics, photons 5000. Volume caustics, I turned on the checkbox. Energy 40%, photons 2000. And I'm going to go ahead and render that. And nothing happened, except you can see the volumetric light working, but other than that, nothing happened. And the reason is because I didn't change my render settings. So you have to go here to caustics, and you got to turn on volume caustics right here. So click that checkbox right there. We'll go ahead and render this again. And this time we're going to get a new render. Okay, so here is our final output. And using the new A/B compare function in 11.5, we're going to go ahead and compare these two. So I'm going to go A/B compare, set that to B, set this to A, swap horizontal and vertical. So you can see what the volume caustics have done. Here's without volume caustics, here's with volume caustics, without, with. So they basically, you kind of get more of a like light going through a stained glass window kind of effect going on here. The light changes color according to the transmission medium that it went through. Now, one word of caution I gotta tell you is that this will bring your computer to its knees, so be very careful with volume caustic settings. You really don't need that many photons at all. The important setting in caustics is to play with is the recompute, and that's particularly important if you're going to do like an animation. So what it's going to do is, if you turn on this save solution checkbox right here, it's going to go ahead and create an illumination folder next to your file, and it's going to create a whole bunch of C# code in this illumination folder. And it works kind of like global illumination. So the first time you do it, it's going to take some time to do, but from then on out, it should decrease the time that it takes to render your solution. But I just want you to be aware of that save solution checkbox right there. I turned it off because I'm experimenting and I want my renders to be the most accurate as possible every time I change variables. That is, I don't want it to go back to the illumination folder and give me the same lights that I had with the previous variables. Alright, that's my tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and hit me up with any questions that you have. Thank you.